Arlos or Stu or?
Yeah, we're just waiting momentarily for the stream to begin.
Oh, okay.
So. Already, yes. So with regard to the memo before you, we put together some in-kind costs, estimated, I'll specified in-kind costs to fulfilling their requests that they have submitted. So it's up for council discussion and ultimate approval if council so desires. And yes, it was Jason Bullock and Stu Weber that assisted in developing this memo.
This is Murray here. We had a Tabor Shooting Foundation had a tailgate meeting out at the Shooting Foundation, and that was right after they were asking for the pressure washer. So I told them at that meeting we would like a letter of all your requests for the 2020 year so we can deal with them, and then we can put in our schedule if they get passed or whatever. So that's how it got here. So.
Yeah, so the intent was to deal with it all at once, right, Murray?
Yeah, I asked them for the request to send it in, then we can deal with it if we don't want to do it all or whatever we want to do, and then the department heads can fit it into their schedule too, instead of just going and wanting it done tomorrow or the next day. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Very good.
As far as, I just have a question maybe for Brian Badura on this, or Arlos, maybe either one of you could answer. I'm just wondering if this, when we get these requests like this, I'm not opposed to this request at all, but capturing this amount and putting into recreation, do we have a recreation line on our budget? And for future negotiations with, I guess, other municipalities when it comes to recreation grant funding?
Yeah, it's something that we probably, I believe that the MD's been trying to keep track of these types of in-kind donations and contributions. I'm not sure, and Brian can add to this, from a budgetary perspective, if we could really demonstrate that. Could we demonstrate that, Brian, through, I guess, our actuals and our budget?
I've been researching this on how we can get these costs from other departments and reallocate them. As budget-wise, the wages, the machine costs, the amortization is in the individual public works and ag service or budgets. Now, if we were to transfer costs from one department to another, if we create revenues in one department and expenditures in another, i.e., to move some of these costs, at the end of the year before we finalize the financial statements, we have to eliminate all internal transactions from the financial statements. So we aren't artificially creating revenue for the organization, but yeah, we are researching a good way we can get these costs from ag service board or public works into recreation, or for that matter, possibly other departments with lots of interdepartmental activities going on. But the one big one is we can't create revenues for the organization. All the internal transactions would be required to be eliminated before year-end financial statements are released.
Yeah, whatever system we choose to use, it would be great to have a little more clarity on what we're actually spending on recreation, whether that's in kind or actual cash grants.
Okay, excuse me. Okay. Any thoughts around the table on the ask from the Tabor Shooting Foundation?
I got one comment, I guess or a few comments, because this, equals up to between $10,000 and $12,000 in kind this year, and it was last year, and kind of probably foreseeable future. And I just wonder where will it end, I guess, in the sense of when will they become self-sufficient, right? Like from what I've gathered from historical information from other people in regards to the Shooting Foundation is if we built it for them, they'd be able to be self-sufficient and they wouldn't need us because it's a low-cost facility. It's not like continuous, really high power, gas and those sorts of things. So I know, like, before I'd be okay with doing anything, I'd like to see what their financials would be showing for this year. As some of these things I can see we could probably do a lot more efficiently, but at the same time, I think we need to have a limit on what we're also giving for in-kind, as some of these things I think they can hire a private contractor for some of these things as well. Not against helping them out here and there, but at the same time, like this adds up quite a bit to be, $10,000 to $12,000 when I do believe they have pretty decent revenue income from, I think this last year, I think they're on that 500 members mark. So.
This is Tamara. I have a comment. So I don't know what their financials are or where they're at. And again, this has been an issue ever since I was elected to council, because from the information we've received from the Shooting Foundation when they visited, there is an idea that we were going to sustain and help them, particularly with the skeet range and then doing ongoing things. So I guess as a council, I'd like to figure out, is this a recreation facility that we are part of the operation? And are we able to sustain it? Because I'm not against it. In fact, maybe I should, I should declare that Mark is a member. And so it's just that how are we going to go? How far are we willing to go, and what are we willing to do? And if we're accepting this as one of our MD recreation facilities, then I have no problem, but then we should be building it into the budget. But if we've decided that we did what we were going to do and now they're on their own, we should also convey that message so that it's fair to the Shooting Foundation as well. And I think every year we dance on either side of this, not for a reason that we're not supportive. We just haven't made a decision on how the council is going to go forward with this.
Did we just lose Councillor Mianega too? Oh, she's still there. Oh, okay. Weird.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. So, Councillor Mianega, administration did kind of outline some of those points in the section of the memo where administration provides its position. And quite frankly, administration's fine either way with which direction council wants to go, but it would be nice to know, or actually have a final direction or a concrete direction at some point. It may not be today. That may not be decided today, but at some point it would be nice to know, because we could, if it's something that we would want to provide operational support to on a regular basis, much easier to capture in the budget if we incorporate it into our budget, kind of to John's previous point about capturing these costs. So just a few ramblings from the CAO.
John here again. I think that this is also another good discussion for when we have our recreation discussion. This is one of those that needs to be looked at and discussed, because I believe that their plan for the future, at least I think it is, the plan of the Shooting Foundation, is once they're fully operational with their skeet and trap range, that I think they'll be able to be at a point where they're probably going to have to hire some kind of staff there to keep up with the maintenance. I think that's they'll have enough members that they'll be able to afford to do that. So I think that's kind of what they're waiting for, is to be complete. Us on council see it as complete because it's functioning, but it's not actually complete to the level that they originally started at, I guess.
And perhaps Brian, Bruin, or Jack, I don't know if you could answer this question. And I think I've asked it before, but never really felt like I got an answer. What was promised to begin with? Like, were we going to finish the range off and turn it over to them, or were we going to, I guess, what was promised back when this was first approved by council? If either of you could answer that question.
I guess my understanding, it was going to be similar to the bike motocross track that we did right beside. We'd help do some of the work, and eventually they would take it over. Now, we did make some commitment that when we had time, we would try to work on the skeet range and some of the other facilities, but we've never made a promise as to when that would be. It was kind of as time came available with our equipment. That is how I would remember it, Merrill.
Okay.
That's the way
And go ahead.
well, that's the way I would remember as well, Merrill.
Now, this range was built during the winter. Could this skeet trap area be done in the off season again, like the range itself was?
I think that would be a question to our operations staff, but I'm not sure how versed they are in the previous construction phase of it. So, Stu, would you have anything you'd like to add in that regard with regard to actual construction?
At this point, I can't really speak to it because I don't know exactly what the demand is from them on us in terms of what they want built there. So I haven't seen any plans or seen anything on that yet.
I think another important thing to remember is when that agreement was made with the Shooting Foundation, or that discussion was, I guess, had when the Shooting Foundation was started, was a little bit different financial time than we're currently facing. So I think that's probably the reason that it hasn't been completed, or one of them. And another one is that we've had some earlier winters, last number of winters. They've come up on us quite quickly. I think financially, though, is the biggest concern, finance and time.
And I guess one thing I will add to that, just on some of the history I have of when they were doing the work in the wintertime there the first time, always keep in mind that moving dirt in the wintertime costs you about twice as much as it does in the summer, like in the unthawed months, just because of the amount of work that goes into ripping material and the wear and tear the machines take. I blame the current state of our D7 on wintertime work, so that's just my 2 cents on that.
So I think I'd have to also agree with John there on the sense of different financial times back then compared to what we are realizing right now. And after that, and I know another way, like, to bring different things up on kind of through the winter there, we've seen the Vauxhall Curling Club struggling with things. And one of the reasons they said they weren't getting recreation grants from the town of Vauxhall, I know there were two different entities here, but one reason they said they weren't getting funding was because they're a members club, right? You have to be a member to be there, which you also have to be a member to be there, right? So it's one of those things that's two completely entities, but at the same time, we have to sometimes look at how, once again, our recreation grants and where our money gets spent for recreation.
For me, I think the hard part has been the foundation has conveyed to us that they thought we were going to finish the skeet range. So I think on that note, which is separate than what today's request is, we have to come to some conclusion as to where we're going to land on that. And as far as the amount of today's, if we can financially manage, are we looking at doing half, or are we looking at doing all? You know, because it isn't just gravel, right? Now we're looking at manpower to do these things as well. And we've really asked our staff to be aware of overtime, and you know, we put the crunch on them as well. So it's tough to add too many other projects.
Well, and I wonder too if a project like this, like, is this one of the projects, like with what's going on right now, is this a shovel-ready project for a private contractor that might be able to get done in, you know, something like a debenture and they just pay it off type of thing, right? Like, I think there's other means of going about it that maybe won't cost the MD fully. Like, if we have to help them out and get that and they just pay us back over 5-10 years, maybe. Like, I don't know, but as you say, I think the skeet thing is I wouldn't say contentious issue, but it's been an issue that they were hoping that would be probably resolved by now as well.
Yeah, and just to clarify, this particular request, there's no clear ask for construction of that skeet shooting area. It's more so just, as Murray explained, just what they'd be looking for in assistance this year. So
I think this is quite a similar request and ask, a list of requests or in-kind work by us, similar to last year, I believe. Is that right, Murray?
Yeah, I just wondering that too. Did we take ride-on mowers out there last year, or was it just our bigger tractor mowers and do stuff? And yes, every meeting we do have, they still bring up the skeet part of it or whatever, and I just tell them we have no money to do it right now, and we'll keep it in mind. So.
As far as that, Murray, I believe they did take out the riding mowers a number of times last year as well. I don't know how many times, but they did. I'm pretty certain that they did last year. Jason might be able to clarify that.
Yeah, I think on the bottom of the agricultural services portion of it, hours worked is based over what they've done over the last 2 or 3 years, which have been hot and dry years. So it sounds like they've been doing that already. But go ahead, Jason, if you want to add to that.
Correct. We have had the lawn mowers out along with the big road mowers in that facility, along with our spray trucks. We've been in there with our spray trucks also.
So the agricultural services part of it has been going on for 2 or 3 years then, Jason?
Since it was built, we have been doing that. So everything they've asked for is not new. It's just that it's coming in front of you as council, with Brian Badura and myself, mostly Brian, being part of this recreation master plan, and we're trying to capture the dollars spent on all of our recreational facilities within the MDA Tabor, and this is just showing you what is going towards this recreational facility if, as a council, you accept this. So just for a lot of knowledge of what we do. Same with the one prior for Grassy Lake Community Hall. You know, all these kind of things in the past used to just happen quietly all the time. Phone calls would come, and here now we're centralizing it in front of you as a council.
So on that note, I would like some clarification, and whether that happens now or that happens when we have our rec discussion. I think it's, I don't know which day, on the 2nd or something. Is council creating a bottleneck to work completion, or are we capturing what's already being done, or was it already being captured because people's wages were being paid, that equipment was being expensed out, and those facilities? So I'm concerned, and I know this is not about just the shooting foundation. We're changing the method that we're doing it, but are we creating a bottleneck for the staff and for the organization? And is there a better way, which would go back to some of the questions asked in the rec survey about they put in a letter of request? So I just make that as a comment. I don't expect an answer today, but I am finding this to be a bit of a frustrating conversation.
Yeah, at this
Okay.
point, at this point, I definitely understand where Councillor Mianega is coming from, with regard to these things coming before council, and perhaps they were something that was just typically dealt with on an operational basis before. And I do think her bringing it up would be a good basis for discussion, perhaps at a policy committee meeting moving forward with regard to recreation. But I do think it's something that needs to probably have some good understanding as a whole, as a group, so that we can move forward knowing what everybody's expectations are, right? If you just use me as an example, and I do recognize that I'm relatively fresh with the organization, but if you use me as an example, ever since I came, it's been made, one way or another, it's been made clear to me that council really has a strong desire to know and have a better handle on contributions in terms of in-kind contributions for recreational purposes. So this is one way, by putting it front and center during a council meeting, of helping you get that grasp, helping you understand what kind of in-contributions are going to these groups, recreation as a whole, just so you're aware that it's happening. So that to me, as a new person walking into the organization, that to me, what I'm seeing now is what I see has been happening, at least for the recent past, right? I know that's kind of a mouthful, but
I appreciate that, Arlos. I just hope that when these come forward like this, they're not made put any extra pressure on staff thinking that they need to do them ahead of their, I guess, regular duties, and that they're done when they can fit them in. Or if staff feels that they don't have the time to do them, if they have the if they would have the initiative or the be able to say that they don't have time.
Well, on the flip side, though, if we've already been doing them since the inception of the range, or we've delivered sand since as long as we've known, we want to capture and we want to be aware, because that was part of our problem as we're going forward with some of our ICF. So that shows what we're truly doing with recreation. But now I would suspect there's a perception that we're not in favor of supporting these items. But actually, we want to recognize what our contribution is. And then the other item for me is our financial time's changing so much that we have to pull back on some of the things we've always done.
right, and I think some of these would fall very well into an overall discussion, touching on what we've typically done in the past, and I mean long-term past, as well as even sometimes when you're tracking certain operations, sometimes formalizing those operations in a budget in the form of an actual area. I mean, we do have that through the 72 function in our budget, which is the recreation. But there may be ways that we can formalize that even more from a recreation perspective. But I feel like I'm rambling a little bit and getting a little bit off topic from the actual request at hand. But it's definitely something that we could touch on in a policy committee meeting or something of that sort, just to know what everybody's expectations are. Be on the same page.
Okay, so the request is, is there something else, another comment?
Yeah, I just want to say, like, in regards to, like, the, Tamara was saying, with pulling back on some things, if, because of the financial times, and I think that's where, when times are good, it's pretty easy to share the wealth, I guess, and when things are getting a little tighter, we might have to start looking at other ways we can, harness some things in, especially if other groups are able to afford things on their own or what their financial situation is, right? So.
I got something more there. Levitt was saying something about their financials in my community report for next council meeting. I've sent that in to Candace, so it will be on my committee report for next meeting, what the financials are. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so this is work that's, at least under the agricultural services portion of it, we've been doing for a number of years. I guess the question is, do we want to let them carry on and do these things? And then under the public works, it looks like it's in kind of a new list of things that they'd like done. Adds up to, looks like a couple $1,000s. What's everybody's thoughts? We want to proceed the way we've been doing things? A motion one way or the other?
Well, seeing that these are not new things, I'll give you that motion that we will continue with our past practice, recognizing that we're going to review and reassess how rec funding is allocated.
Okay. I know one of the things that was brought up in one of the intermunicipal committees was an actual tallying of what the MD has done in recreation. And so I think knowing that we're contributing, what is it here, 10,000 under ag services is one thing that it would be nice to know that that's what was going on. And that's why maybe it was brought to our attention, what it's actually being, what contributions we're actually making to recreation in the area. But not Levitt, Tamara's given us a motion to, you've got it, Candace? You've got her motion? Okay, she does have her motion. To proceed with fulfilling these requests again this year, if I've got the motion correct. Okay. Everybody understand the motion? That's
Sorry, I have to continue, motion to continue with past practices at the Tabor Shooting Foundation and to review how rec funding is allocated.
Any more discussion around that motion?
I have just clarification on that. Also, I don't know if council's aware that some of the membership, a portion of that is paid to the MD for maintenance. So some of this is already prepaid. I don't know how much that is, but I do know we received some funds from membership sales from the Shooting Foundation.
I think it's $5, isn't it?
I can follow up in the agreement, but
okay.
I'm not sure exactly how much.
Okay. All those in favor of Tamara's motion?
I'm in favor.
Brian, I don't know if I can speak to that a little bit about what the MD receives from their agreement with us. I think it's worded as it's rent and reclamation, so they pay $10 per person, per member for rent, and $5 per year on for the reclamation fee. So currently at 500 members, they pay about $7,500 back to the MD Taylor each year.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Back to the motion. Those in favor?
In favor.
Okay.
In favor?
Okay.
In favor.
Merrill's in favor. Carried. All right. And like I said, I think it's important for administration to keep track of those costs. So when we go into discussions with the different municipalities over recreation funding, we have a better idea of what we actually are funding and doing in kind to help in those discussions and those negotiations. All right, now we move on to request for decision on bylaw. Enchant Golf Course is the first one up. And they want to change their gaming and liquor license from a Class C to a Class A. And they need the MD to support their application to change their license. Any comments, questions, discussion? Murray, you want to add anything to that at all?
Yeah, I didn't know anything about this really until it come on the agenda, and then I went out to the clubhouse on the weekend. There was people working in there and trying to get ready for the new season, and actually talked to the vice president and more or less what they want their license upgraded so they could sell off sales, as the restaurant in Enchant is only open part of the time if you can find her or whatever, and that's their intent. But I believe we have the vice president is in this meeting with us, unless she has any other comments to go with it.
Yeah, so what has happened is the restaurant was grandfathered the off-sale license for the Enchant and area. But what we're running into is she's either not open or she doesn't carry anything. So as a resident, I'm often buying my off sales in Lethbridge, and because I can't support the restaurant because she doesn't carry anything. And you know, worked in the store for many years, and even prior to that, when they took over, we had people going to Vauxhall, Picture Butte, Turin that are even camping and going to these places to get off sales. So we just kind of thought, well, if we could kind of keep it more local, would help with our budget and our income within the golf course association. And we would only be doing this from May till the end of September. So basically when we're open, we wouldn't do this year round. So it was just something that we thought we'd try to get and go from there. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that clarification, Ginger. Thoughts around the table, anybody? I guess we're not really around the table anymore. Thoughts from the living room? Anybody? Anybody prepared to make a motion one way or the other to support, give a letter of endorsement to the Enchant Golf Club?
I can do that, Mayor.
Okay, Brian, I hear Brian's voice has given us a motion to supply a letter of endorsement for the Enchant Golf Club for their liquor license upgrade from Class C to Class A. All those in favor?
In favor.
In favor.
In favor.
In favor.
Okay, carried.
In
Thank
favor.
you. Next is a memo from the Lost Paws Society. Arliss?
Yep. So this is being, I believe this is a follow-up RFD. Council did receive a delegation to this effect in, I believe, December 2019. Kirk can confirm that or not. But this did come through the Director of Community Safety, Kirk Hughes, and he can speak to it, or quite simply answer any questions council has on this topic.
Thank you, Mr. CAO. Sorry, I was just on another teleconference with an IDP meeting with the town of Taber, so kind of wearing two hats here. I apologize. So this is an RFD that was submitted to council in 2019 in regards to recommendations for a joint animal care facility with the town of Taber and a nonprofit organization known as the Lost Paws Society. I've completed the background investigation and some of the information that has been put in the RFD in regards to the recommendations and some of the other background information. Subject to any questions from council, I'll do my best to answer them.
So they're looking for a $50,000 one-time donation for the capital construction of the facility. Is that what they're looking for, Kirk?
Yes, Mr. Reeve, they're looking for a $50,000 capital project construction one-time fee. And then from there, we would negotiate a monthly fee and also a per dog or per dog fee, which is very much done some research in some other animal care facilities in and around southern Alberta and a little bit northern Alberta as well. and it's very competitive. So this is something that a different type of process that seems to be a common theme throughout all the peace officers and bylaw officers that I've dealt with. The way it's set up as a fee structure is very compatible.
Okay, anybody have any comments, questions, concerns? This facility would be built here in the town?
Yes, Mr. Reeve, would be the town of Taber has actually donated the land to the Lost Paws Society, which is a nonprofit organization, and it would be built, my understanding, on the north part of the town of Taber, kind of within our, or pretty close to our IDP boundary.
Okay, I heard somebody else.
Yes, I got a question with, right now it says that we spend close to $10,000 a year on the adoption process through hourly wages and dog kenneling. So if we were to go to this, how much would we just essentially be paying for the dog kenneling and not really much for hourly wages then? It would be just the dog kenneling and that would be it?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, Councillor. Right now what we have here is a community peace officer would locate the dog, seize the dog, and then from there we hold it for roughly 3 days. We have it in our boarding facility where things are a little different here in the MD than, say, as opposed to like the town of Taber through the Lost Paws Society. Is the peace officer program is responsible for that dog from the day we get it to the day it's adopted out. And that can take 30, 60, 90 days sometimes. So we're responsible for vet bills if the animal is injured or we get the animal that's injured. We have to pay for that. And then we have to, as well, the background work that gets done on the investigational stuff as part of our job. We're good at that. But it's the adoption process. It's taking the dog out to visit people that may or may not be interested in the dog. It's actually doing all the paperwork. We're doing the background checks on some people in order to facilitate this animal's rehoming. And that's where we've been very lucky with our adoption rates. I think we're actually very good at it. But there are times where dogs have been in our care as the Director of Community Safety for a lot longer than I would have financially liked it to be in there. And I think that's where Lost Paws comes in, because after the 3-day process of having the dog in our care, we pass it over to that nonprofit organization, and they work on the rehoming, the fostering if necessary, the vet bills, and they actually process that dog until it finds its forever home. And that takes a lot of our hourly wages and has peace officers back on the road doing enforcement.
I have a question on this as well. I'm just wondering, I see our annual costs, $10,000. What do you project our cost to be with Lost Paws annually?
Annually, I suspect that Lost Paws overall, depending, we have to negotiate some of the rates. The town of Taber's rates are a little different than ours. They deal with a lot more animals than we do. They also deal with a lot of, they deal with cats and other domesticated animals that we just don't deal with in the MD of Taber as part of our bylaw. So I'm suspecting that our financial contribution to Lost Paws would be very similar to the $10,000. Actually, I'm looking at it to be below $10,000. But it's always, for us in the MD, we have seen that dog rates have gone up, and we suspect they're going to continue to go up. Where I think Lost Paws will be very steady, minus the $50,000 initial capital investment. Overall, in the next 20-some years that this facility will be open and maintained, I suspect that our budgetary requirements will be very similar year after year. And I can't necessarily say that about the current method that we're using.
So again, under financial implications on the memo, $50,000 capital project construction, monthly fees of $500 to Lost Paws, so there's $6,000 a year, not including a $35 a day per dog, minimum 3-day when an animal is brought in by a peace officer for holding. So do you figure that another $4,000, we won't go over another $4,000 in per day fees for holding dogs? Is that really what you've kind of budgeted here? Is that what I'm reading?
Yes, Mr. Reeve. Those numbers that we received that are on the financial implications, the $500 is what the town of Taber is currently paying, as well as the $35 dog fee, which we pay through our other private contractor as well. The annual monthly fees, I think, are negotiable.
I think $500 to the town of Tabor includes a lot that we just don't have in the MD of Tabor.
Okay.
So initially, I put that number in there because that is in the high end. I suspect that with council's approval, and one of my recommendations would be to allow me to negotiate with Lost Paws in the town of Tabor for a lower rate and fee. And that's the fee that we suspect going forward will be very much predictable year after year.
Okay.
Might be a little tougher to negotiate a fee when you've already given them the $50,000 to build the building, though.
That's a very good point, Councillor. I think we do have a little bit of leeway here. Construction isn't planned until later in the spring of 2021. So I think we do have some additional time to negotiate with the town and with the Lost Paws. And both parties have been extremely cooperative with the MD of Tabor, with me as Director of Community Safety. I don't suspect any issues. I simply needed a number when I asked them for the ask, so to speak. I needed that number for the RFD. I don't have any issues going forward. I don't suspect that it'll be an issue.
So, go ahead, Brian.
In the past, we had approved a building in Grassy for dogs. I know we had approved that. I know when we started looking into it, it became a whole lot more cumbersome. And then we realized when we started dealing with dogs and staff to look after them and some of the conditions of the building. No, we never did materialize on that building. Is that an option that we would build our own?
To be honest with you, Councillor Bruin, I did review the previous Grassy Lake Animal Care Facility proposal as part of my research into this RFD going forward. What Lost Paws has done for us, I think, is it centralized a lot of the nonprofit organization, and it takes a lot of that cost away from the MD. So instead of actually us employing staff members to deal with dogs and adoptions and vet bills and other things going forward, the Lost Paws Society has voluntarily taken that on with very little cost because it's a nonprofit volunteer organization. So that is something that I think they have the edge over any other projects that we could think of. And my other hat is economic development. I have looked at the idea of an animal care facility in the MD of Tabor, but fiscally and it just isn't something we can do in this in this economic environment.
So, I mean, the 50,000 capital, I would like some input from admin on that, but the yearly cost, I think we should do an analysis of what our 1 year would look like at this new rate with them. But I'm reluctant that we even have this number out here and we haven't negotiated with them or talked to them. So, I'm always worried when we go with this number and then we say, well, we're going to negotiate. Well, I know exactly where I'd start negotiating if I was them.
Okay. We can certainly bring it back. I have no issues with that. If the CAO directs me to go back and get these numbers and items finalized with before moving forward with another RFD, that's something within the powers. I'm sure I can get that done.
Merrill, I got one further question.
Yep.
Now, my conversation with them is they were looking for gravel. I think supplying gravel or in-kind would be different than cash right now. Kurt, is that still what they're looking for, is more in-kind, or are they looking for cash?
When I spoke to the director, when I spoke to the lead of their Lost Paws Society, when I actually sent her the email, I said, what is the ask for the MD of Tabor for an RFD? The information and the financial implications is what she sent me. The in-kind donation was brought up a few times in regards to gravel and fencing. They have not been repeated to me to be included in the RFD. At this time, the ask is the $50,000 with a negotiable fee in regards to monthly fees and per animal day fee.
So they've actually asked for the 50,000.
That's correct, Mr. Reef.
Okay, so I guess I'm kind of like Tamara. It would be nice to know exactly what the ask is and what the fees are going to be. And I think if you did the negotiation and then brought the final numbers back to us, what we're looking at, I do believe there's a need for this facility, but solid numbers are always better than we might be able to get it for this.
Mr. Reeve, I can, if so directed, I can certainly do that.
Yeah, I'm kind of under the same thing like as well, but at the same time I understand that as CPOs, I think we would like them more out on our roads for weights and measures and safety on that sort than kind of chasing the dogs around in a way. So I feel like this would probably be a good benefit, but at the same time, I guess that's the final cost of what the actual cost might be, and kind of the cost analysis compared to what for them doing it compared to what our projected price would be too.
Certainly, I agree with you. I think there's some added value to this facility as it relates to releasing CPOs to continue with the education and enforcement component. And I will go back and speak to Lost Paws in the town area, and if so directed, and we will get those solid numbers for you folks.
Go ahead.
Well, and I just think even on the 50,000 capital, do we have a motion to that effect, or this is a new request? And then odd that they came before us, but I would need to look at their presentation. Was that dollar amount in there? And just want to make sure that we know what we're doing here.
Yep, Councillor Mayenega, they did come before us. There was no money at that point. There's no official ask from the Lost Paws Society. I think they just gave a presentation to put it before council. I was directed at that point to go back and speak to the Lost Paws and to nail them down in regards to the actual ask itself, which was financial at the time. So that $50,000 was actually part of the background investigation from 2019 to today's RFD before council. That information, financial implications, is a result of communication between myself and the Lost Paws Society as well as the town of Taber.
So I'd like to make a motion that we ask admin to obtain a formal request from Lost Paws regarding capital and yearly operational fees regarding the Lost Paws facility and our contribution. Okay, sorry, Candace, that was a mess, but
I got the gist of it, Councillor.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we got that motion.
You got it. Okay. Any more discussion around the ask? Go ahead.
I got one. Just I know their ask right now is financial, and I know it might be easier for them to just ask for money, but I wonder, I don't know, more clarification if it can be a combination between the in-kind and or cash donation as well.
I'm good with that, Levitt, whichever way, but I think we need to see something formal from Lost Paws, and they're a very well-organized group, so I'm just surprised that it's come this way.
Okay, any further discussion around Lost Paws?
Sorry, it's Mr. Reeve, it's Kirk Hughes here. Councillor Mayenega, what would you look for in regards to formal? What would you require from them? A letter, perhaps?
Well, I know they have a cost estimate on their building or their project costs already, so I think that would make good sense that they could see where our MD contribution would help with their capital, and then also how we will deal with them operationally. I think that's this is a large amount of money again, and so we've asked other groups to provide information, and Lost Paws came to us, and like you just said, they don't have a formal request other than the background. I think if we're ready, a formal request is important.
Yes, ma'am, I can, if so directed, I can get that.
Okay, Tamara's given us a motion. All in favor?
In favor.
In favor.
In favor.
In favor.
Okay, carried. Thank you. we'll have that information brought back for a future council meeting. Next one is agenda item 9.3, Parks and Recreation opening guidelines.
Very good. Thank you, Reeve Harris. So, again, since we did discuss this at the last council meeting and kind of come up with a staged plan for opening the parks. However, since then, there's been a few changes by the provincial government with regard to restrictions or lightening of restrictions on mass gatherings. So we're wanting to just bring it before council, make sure that they're aware of such, and that we could quite simply adjust it in accordance with those of the province. And Jason, if I'm missing anything, please pipe in.
Well, there's just the update here from last Friday's announcement of outdoor gatherings of 50 plus or up to 50 people. So a few recommendations for changes, updates to our reopening guidelines or stages that we have.
Ultimately, it has an impact on group camping areas and even some of the day use areas, correct, Jason?
Correct. That's the biggest changes is allowing up to 50 people in our group use areas and rearranging our day use areas for people and have the outdoor time.
Okay, part of the RFD is the changes that Jason has made in relation to the changes that the province has made as far as allowing the number of people to be gathered in a certain place. Is there any concern with anything that's in the memo as far as the changes that have been made since the last time we looked at this?
I just have a question. I see like the MDF Tabor Park and municipal campgrounds. You have, looks like all sites are being used, and Grassy Lake, every other campus will be closed to create distancing, as well as Hayes. I'm just wondering if that's a printing error, or if that's just the way that MD and Tabor Park and municipal campgrounds are going to be every stall and not Grassy and Hayes. Just a question.
Could you repeat that again, Murray?
Well, I see the MD parks. I guess where I noticed is the Grassy Lake campground and Hayes. It says every other camp stall will be closed to create an automatic distance buffer, but it's not in our MD park and municipal campground. Is that the way it's supposed to read, or am I not seeing straight?
No, either I got a typo there, but it should read that the campground and the river bottom will be open every other stall.
Okay.
Jason, is that necessary in some of them? Certainly them along the river. I'm not sure you need every other one. They got quite a space between them as it is.
I think it's not, as I visit with some officials from the province here a week and a half ago or so, not necessarily based on the fact that they're trying to manage the whole park numbers altogether. And so if you use 50% of your campsites, then that should, in theory, limit you to have 50% of the people in that campground. And so instead of having 800 people, maybe now you have 400 people in the campground. So along with your social distancing and everything else that we have guidelines to manage, also these big, huge numbers. If you filled that campground full of people You know, I don't know, I'm just showing out numbers. You have 1,000 people in that campground, that's a lot of people in the area.
No, I was just looking practicality. I mean, there's a lot of gap between them along the river there.
Correct, yeah, especially north side, you're correct, Brian. There's some pretty wide open spaces there.
Yeah.
But so that's where it comes down to more, not this social distancing, but just staying at the 50% capacity.
Yeah, managing your total mass numbers.
And 50% is the government regulation right now, Jason?
That's what they're doing with their campgrounds, so we're following their guidelines.
So stage 2 starts in what, 10 days or 11 days, something like that, or the 11th or the 8th of June, so that's a couple of weeks. But no set date yet for moving on to stage 3, and that's the government will make that call, Jason?
Correct. We're following and watching and doing what the province is doing. We're mirroring them, which as I visit with the other municipalities around us, they're doing the same thing with their campgrounds. They're just going to mirror what the province does.
Okay. So just for my information, Jason, private campgrounds the rules are a little bit different for them. Is that what's going on?
Correct. So the province, they have their own campgrounds. We're classed as a private campground because, of course, we're not a provincial campground. So we have the ability to do whatever we want with our recreation areas. But along with that, we also have to follow the regulations that the province has set out in their guidelines. So some of that is pretty tough to do, and some of it, as time marches on and moves forward, we're able to manage some of that a little better.
Okay. Any more questions regarding the proposed changes to the parks and recreation areas in the MD of Taber?
I'm just wondering about Murray here, just wondering about the ball diamonds. I read the way it says groups no more than 50, but maybe some of the other ones do have outdoor washrooms, but at Enchant we don't have any. So if we have, I know I talked with the guy that looks after the ball diamonds in Enchant here, the minor ball, and he was asking me this question: is we don't have any. We do have portable ones. We only use certain times of the year, only 4 of them. So are we going to put them out, and when all these groups come to play ball in Enchant, they're going to be just about trashed because we've had that happen last year when Low German Mennonite come up and play ball. Our normal facilities they leave them in quite a mess for park staff to clean up Monday morning. So I'm just wondering about the ball diamond areas, but I guess that's all I have.
Yeah, as you bring people in, they certainly need facilities to use for the afternoon or however long they're there. So I think most of ours and our areas, Grassy Lake, there's outhouses there, and they're all posted to use at your own risk right now still. So
that would likely be the same approach in other places too, in terms of outhouse use and whatnot. You continuing to use at your own risk, at least during the pandemic scenario that we're in.
I think using an outhouse anytime fits that scenario.
True enough. So then the MD parks would be every other camping stall, just like Grassy and Hayes then?
Yes, you bet. You bet. We'll clarify that better in their stage 2.
No, I picked that out the other night there, and I'm just like, oh, that's kind of different, but anyway. Thank you.
You bet.
Okay, so we need a motion one way or the other on this. Anybody prepared to give a motion?
I can give you that motion now.
Okay, that's Murray. Any more discussion on the proposed motion under the recommendation here? I'm assuming that's what you're going to go with, Murray?
Yeah, with every other camping stall closed and the NBA table parks too, just like the rest.
Okay. Any further discussion at all? All in favor of Murray's motion?
In favor.
In favor.
In favor.
In favor.
In favor, carried. Thank you. Next one is agenda item 9.4. Establish governance relaunch plan.
Thank you. Thank you, Reeve Harris. So yes, this is being brought forward by myself, the CAO. There are some questions in there and that we're looking for kind of feedback / direction on as it relates to such topics as live streaming. It also touches base on kind of getting back to normal or semi-normal council meetings, whether it be a combination or through social distancing. We're wanting to have that discussion. Ideally, we can make both scenarios available to councilors as they feel comfortable with regard to, I guess, the immediate future. But I think as June approaches, we're in a position to be able to start having councilors attend in person if they like, and make sure we implement social distancing and run the meetings that way. Could be a combination of some joining through online conferencing and some in location physically distancing. So I'm open for feedback and discussion amongst council as a group, to be quite honest.
Okay, what's everybody's thoughts? I know we haven't been together for an awful long time. It would be nice to have people back in the room, but only those that feel comfortable, and if we can continue to maintain the social distancing protocols that are in place there. So what's everybody's thoughts? Anybody have any thoughts on how we want to proceed into the future, whether we continue doing it this way or start having them everybody back here, or a combination of those? Thoughts? Anybody?
I wonder if we do like a combination, to make sure, I guess what everyone ever feels comfortable with too, but I don't know if it's like 1 week, some of us 3 and then 3, or what we do, or if it's just kind of whoever feels comfortable going in there. But I'm okay with either one type of thing, because Zoom does seem to be working okay, I find, but that's my opinion.
I would be in favor of a hybrid model, I guess, where we leave it up to the councilors whether they want to attend in person or not. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And leaving that option available into the future. I think it's a cost-saving measure as well. We don't have to be coming into every meeting.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I do think it's good, or definitely imperative, that we do continue to have the option, just because we don't know what things will look like over the next few months as well before we decide to just go one way or the other. But I mean, it does sound like having both options available would work.
I know the town council has all come back. They have, a plexiglass shield in between each of them, and they've offered to let us use those if we wish to use them, if that's would make everybody feel comfortable coming back in. But we're certainly not saying that's what we need to do, or just whatever combination or process that everybody wants to use is acceptable. We're just looking for your opinions.
From a social distancing perspective, I think there's sufficient room and potential sufficient setups that we could look at to trial here in the very near future, so that people can be sufficiently. This sounds silly, but people can be sufficiently social distance when they come to council meeting. At the very least, from council participation's perspective. That being said, I do want to make it clear that we can easily make the continued online conferencing through Zoom available for those that would prefer that. It's easy to do a combination model, and it's easy to do it that way. So there are some other governance related scenarios that I'd like to kind of trial moving into the future, and maybe while we're social distancing, that might be an opportunity to strategically take advantage of that and try out some of those new things as well. It's just these are things that I've been wanting to do as a new CAO, or try as a new CAO, but have been difficult simply because we haven't been around in person.
So for sometime in June, and I don't remember which meeting it is, but we have a couple of public hearings coming up. How are they going to function, if just the same way through Zoom?
I think we should provide a combination, because we do, I mean, by then would be, I think, we're into the third week of June. I think we will be open, and we have the council chambers set up in a social distanced way that people, if they so desire, they can come in person, or they can get a phone number to call in for Zoom. So I think we can accommodate both online and both in person scenarios.
Anybody else have any thoughts on this memo, that the steps that Arliss is proposing?
Did you want to treat council or committee meetings the same, similar way as council meetings? That's another question that I wanted to hear council's discussion on as well.
I think similarly to how we run council meetings would make sense, because they're public meetings anyways.
Okay.
A little further down in the memo, it talks about further topics for further discussion. We've been live streaming for a while now. Is that something we want to carry on in the short term and or into the long term?
So if I could add just a little more on those, why I'm putting that forward, it is simply because the short term versus long term. Because in the short term, we're streaming this through YouTube, and we're doing it in a way, kind of what Bryce and I would refer to as overnight technology. It was put together really quickly and isn't necessarily the most efficient way of streaming. So if it's council's intent and desire to carry on with live streaming or audio live streaming in the short term, we'd be able to continue on with that method. If it's council's intention and hope to carry on with live audio or video streaming for the long term, as just simply that's the way it's going to be moving forward, then we're going to want to try and look at streamlining the way we're doing it, so that it's not so onerous in the background. That's really the meat and potatoes as to why I'm asking those questions. I know council has had the discussion before my time with regard to live streaming, whether it's something you're going to do or not. You're waiting on information to be brought back to council, or I think you're waiting on costing information to be brought back to council as it relates to a product that we're using with AllNet right now. So we do have some of that information that we can share. It was also shared in the shared notes portion of the agenda as well. We can move forward on that basis, but it would be nice to know kind of what council's desire is long term. The costs with the AllNet product, quite simply, are something that can be absorbed within our current operational budget. There is budget availability for it. Again, and I know I'm repeating myself, we're just looking to know and confirm what council's desire is long-term on live streaming.
Anybody have an opinion? Why doesn't everybody chime in here and tell us your opinion on continuing live streaming or any of the points here that Arlos has in a memo regarding meetings into the future?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm thinking that one question is I would be curious how often live streaming is accessed or utilized. Like, how many is there actually a demand for it? Like right now we're doing that because legislatively we have to make that possible, but then at the same time, is there actually demand for people to access that information? So are we creating something that doesn't necessarily need to be accessed, or is it something that is required, is needing to be accessed?
So I guess to answer rather succinctly that question, Councillor Crowson, the highest view count that since we've started live audio streaming has been 34 folks that have linked into our YouTube channel for the council meetings. And that was on the first day we did it, so end of March 2020. Following every other council meeting since then, it's ranged from 3 to 16 views, and that would include the staff accessing those as well. Does that help clarify that question, Councillor Crowson?
Yeah, I think so.
It's in the community implications section of the RFD, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Sorry.
So do we, did you say that in the shared notes there's the cost for doing this?
Yeah, and Bryce is online, and he can easily share the one-time cost plus the annual maintenance costs if we were to use the AllNet product. Do you want to share that, Bryce?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the ongoing costs were related to us packaging products as a whole with a suite of AllNet products. So it's right around the $2,000 mark per year as a module, and so that price is dependent on us packaging up the products, and we do have current licensed installed products which entitles us to that price. Our upfront cost is every $3,500. That's for the hardware required to set up, and we have that demo hardware. And I made note in the shared notes that we have that demo hardware, and we've been able to do a series of tests to confirm that it'll work in our environment. So there are no technology limitations in place. There's been nothing in the way of that technology. So we are very capable of doing that and using it within our AllNet meetings environment.
Okay, thanks for that update.
I guess one other comment might be is that we did leave it last time with the need for a final product that was saleable. So he was doing pilots in the past, and so just in recognition of the fact that pilot had finished in the midst of the beginning of COVID-19 timeframe here. So we were waiting till the February timeframe to get that demo package and actually be able to see it in action. And so during the COVID-19 and during our overnight rollout of YouTube, we have received the product. So we are able to show a live demo now. And so we're hoping to do that for council so that we can get a good simulation and a really good idea of what that would look like going forward.
So I have thank you, Bryce, for that information in the shared notes. So we have our bylaw allows people to phone in. So now with the ability to do Zoom or this new product, does it present a challenge to our IT people if we have half or a third of council who wants to call in or be on Zoom? Because I wouldn't want to see anyone be penalized for it, but like Councillor Crowson said, we don't know what's going to happen in the future, and it does provide options, and we're all fairly mobile people. And then do we have to adjust our bylaw as far as, you know, attendance? Do you have to be in person for a certain number or not? Does it matter? So that would be on that. So I would hope we can still continue with a variety of options. The second, on the live stream, I'd like to know why we wouldn't continue when it does allow for people to go back and review our stuff. I know the numbers haven't been very high, and when I look at other municipalities, they're not very high either, but it does allow the public, if there's an issue of concern or interest, that they can go and review it. Because to review the council minutes doesn't give as much detail, and maybe there's a reason for that, and I'm just not as aware. So I would like clarification, and not maybe even just from our municipality, but how the province sees live streaming. Because
Sounds like we lost Tamara there.
We just didn't hear the last portion
Okay,
of
we
your
just didn't
comments.
hear the last portion? Okay.
no, I just mean that I'd like other municipality, like maybe it's a municipal affairs weigh-in on how things are going to proceed because of COVID as well.
So with regard to, there were some questions in there, and I can try to answer some of those questions or provide a little bit of insight to some of the questions. One is with regard to whether or not our bylaws would need to be changed and corresponding participation, i.e. online participation versus in-person participation for things like public hearings and whatnot. My first thought on that one would be, right now we're operating under the emergency ministerial orders that were issued that are giving us the authority to do that, right, through conduct our council meetings and receive public participation in our council meetings and any subsequent or corresponding hearings through the authority of that ministerial order. That being said, eventually it wouldn't be, depending on how council chooses to proceed here, it would not be a bad practice, and I would suggest, as a matter of good practice, we would want to match our bylaws accordingly to what we're doing in the council chambers. I'm trying to think of the other questions you may have had, Tamara. What other specific question did you ask?
I just wanted to know the negative, other than the cost and IT requirements, to continue a live stream.
So I couldn't tell you a negative or a positive. Quite simply, I would take the position of being neutral. Administration is just putting forward the question because I think direction on whether we do it or not needs to come from council. It's as simple as that. As far as the official record of council meetings, the official record of council meetings is and always will be, according to the MGA, minutes that are approved by council. So yeah, you can always go back and refer to council meetings and the discussion that was had, but at the end of the day, the legal record of the meeting is manifest in the minutes, which is why the MGA stipulates that meeting minutes, council meeting minutes are to be taken without note or comment. It's a reflection of the business decisions that council made at the council meeting. So hopefully that provides a little bit more insight as well.
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, any other comments or questions for Arlo?
I got one question for Bryce. Bryce, the AllNet system, has there been any tests on internet requirements? I know over the last month or so I've used a variety of different virtual meeting types. Some seem to be a lot higher demand on the internet, and with rural internet it becomes a challenge, as we've had a couple experiences today. Do you have any information on that?
Brian, that's a good point. So viewing the actual online stream is it's purely a download. It's no load component. Challenges with the online meetings and these types of environments is the upload on a lot of the rural connections are is so small that it doesn't really facilitate that very well. And so I would suggest that with a 3 to 5 meg download, as long as there's not a lot of other traffic, streaming environment should be fairly stable. We can do some tests. It would probably be good to do some tests with a couple of the providers, although it does very heavily weigh in on what plan you have, obviously. So anybody who has a 3 meg and under plan, which could be very real in rural Alberta, could be a challenge. But a 6 meg to a 12 meg package, streaming that down should be sufficient to go down.
Yeah, the challenge seems to be the upload here. We seem to be getting plenty of download, but lots of times I'm at like 0.6, 0.8 upload.
Yeah, which really, really does affect your ability to upload both your audio and your video when you're participating in these online meetings. But for the public, specifically related to the live streaming, it's purely a download because they're not.
As you cut out because of bad internet at the end, right?
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Really a download. So the YouTube stream is a service that it's a one-way stream. It's a video stream, so you'd be purely downloading the live stream. There would be no upload.
Okay. Any more questions on the proposed approach to relaunching council meetings, et cetera, from anybody?
I guess my question to council would be, and they can express it in the form of a motion, what's being presented under the summary of key points, the 2 bold headings, conducting of council meetings, and associated statutory public hearings, and conducting of council committee meetings. Is that an approach that you would be in agreement with, or did you want to tweak that, change it up?
I think as long as everybody has the option, if they don't feel comfortable coming in, I think that's acceptable. Maybe some are more cautious on social gatherings than others, and we should leave it to the individual councillor to determine, as long as we can have the same sort of arrangement as we have now, the option of participating via Zoom or whatever other media or internet meeting capabilities we have. I think that's, as long as everybody has the option of attending in person or staying home and participating.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to make sure that council's in agreement with that.
Yeah, anybody have any other thoughts on that?
Moving forward. But I would need it in the form of a motion, right? So what I've highlighted on the screen.
So my other question, and it's just random, when Leva talked about maybe sometimes it should be 3 or 4, depending on whose turn it is, to be respectful of social distancing, doesn't allow an opportunity to people to be on site, and do people feel that if some are on site and some are on Zoom, it presents different challenges? Even though I feel our staff has done a great job with Zoom, and I think it's actually improved efficiency. Oh, sorry, John tells me he can't hear me. So anyways, I just worry, does anyone have concerns that it puts anyone at a different position? The Zoom has worked quite well.
Yeah, you were quite garbled there, but I think we got the gist of what you were saying. And everybody has the option of either coming in or staying at home, whichever works for them.
Do people feel it's challenging or puts them at a disadvantage so that we should flip who's here on what days, or does that matter at all to people?
Oh, okay. Your question was whether we feel it's too challenging to have some able to come in and some aren't?
As well as whether or not any counselors feel disadvantaged by having that kind of some attending, some not attending scenario. Yep. And I believe she was looking for feedback from her counselor peers.
Now, I guess I have a question. Is it a problem if all of council shows up? Does administration think that we have the ability to provide, I guess, good social distancing?
I think if all of council showed up, we could implement sufficient social distancing. It would be nice to have a bit of notice because we might have to switch a few things around from a technology perspective, but we could do it. We could make it work.
I guess for myself, I would be attending if this motion is, I guess, carried. I would be attending in person at the next meeting.
What about anybody else? Anybody else's thoughts? Would you be coming in or would you be staying home at our next meeting if we were to allow it, for lack of better words? Next meeting being 9th of June.
I think you have a council committee meeting on June 2nd.
Okay. True. We also have SDA, ASB, and fire on the 1st.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I don't feel like I'm disadvantaged by not being in the room. I think what we've been doing has been working. I mean, I think it would be nice to see or be in the same room at times as well, but I do feel like even if we are going to social distance, I don't think we're actually all going to make sure that we stay 6 feet apart. And I'm just saying that because I know, like, on the street when you're trying to socially distance with people, I'd say we're probably 3 feet apart, but most definitely not 6. Now, that's just my 2 cents, but I think it's good to still have the option, but I don't think I'm going to just rush to come into a meeting if that makes any sense, but.
And we would set it up so that people, counselors can easily join online.
I guess maybe, I don't know, just throwing this out there, when the agenda gets sent out for the next meeting, that's still 2 weeks away. Everybody could decide if they want to attend or not. And that gives you guys a day or so to get the room the way it needs to be to allow everybody or whoever wants to be here. Does that work?
Yep.
Does that work for everybody?
That would be fine.
Okay, so we have an RFT with a proposed motion. Anybody prepared to make that motion or a different one?
I can give you that motion.
Okay, that council established the proposed approach as its initial governance relaunch plan.
Perfect.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, any more thoughts or discussion on that motion? All in favor of John's motion?
In favor.
In favor?
In favor?
In favor.
In favor?
In favor.
Carried, thank you. All right, that brings us down to...
So, Reeve Harris,
Yep.
administration is still in a bit of floating land on where we are with live streaming. and kind of what council's desire is moving forward. Would they prefer that we just continue to, over the next, between now and next council meeting, we could do some testing on the AllNet product and then maybe have it as an agenda item at that council meeting? Would that be helpful for council, or?
Yeah, we can give it a trial run if that would work.
Okay.
I would be in favor, I guess, of that approach.
Do you need a motion for that, Arliss?
Yeah, a motion is always helpful when we're putting in place things that require actions, so.
Okay, I would make that motion then.
Pardon me?
That administration investigate further the live streaming to bring back to next council. Does that seem like an okay motion? Or does that encapture that?
Yeah, that's fine for administration. For administration's purposes, it's fine. I can't speak for your fellow councilors, though.
So the proposed motion is what, Jennifer?
To have administration bring back some options with live streaming and a demo for next council, or report on what their findings are.
Okay. All those in favor of Jennifer's motion?
In favor.
In favor.
In favor.
In favor?
In favor,
In favor.
carried. All right, thank you. And then,
I just have a quick question. So on the June 2nd meeting, the committee meeting, is that going to be an option to come in person or attend on Zoom?
Well, my thought and suggestion here is that we commence this in June, so. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
so on the first, we have SDA, ASB, and the fire committee, the same thing. They can come in if they'd like.
Yep.
Okay.
Much
And I
of,
guess we should just know who's coming so we can get the room arranged.
much of the staff, just from a numbers perspective, will at this point in time be continuing to join from Zoom. Occasionally they'll come in person. It depends on how many are required for the meeting, right? So that's still a fluid situation, but staff resources will be available regardless. So.
Okay. That's acceptable to everybody? Okay, we'll move on then. We have an item for closed session, so I need a motion to go into closed. Oh, just a minute. What's that? Oh,
I was
right,
just going to say point
right.
of order. We have, yeah.
And Enchant Park sand request. I didn't put it in the right place in the agenda, so I went over it. It's Enchant Park sand request. That came up in a email yesterday, Arlos?
Correct, yeah. Again, this is one of those other scenarios that I think Jason has indicated something they've typically done as part of operations, but I wasn't aware of that at the time either. So.
Jason, you have any comments there?
No, we have provided a few boxes of sand to the Enchant Park for a number of years now, and a lot of these, like I mentioned earlier, we're getting them to put in writing and bring it forward in front of council. So.
Okay. I guess probably since it's here, we should have a motion one way or the other.
I'll just say, Murray here. I sent it in kind of late. I've been having trouble with my internet provider. We finally did get our equipment upgraded, and the equipment seems to work, but I've been playing telephone tag trying to get my printer to work, which is still not up and going, but I've been working with Dean on that, so that's why I come in late.
Okay. Somebody want to make a motion one way or the other on providing Enchant Park with some sand? And you just do it when you've got time, right, Jason? Or I guess that's probably Stu's department when to actual delivery.
We have just done it on windy days when one of my spray guys gets blown out. We just put him in a dump truck and take a few loads up there to him.
Okay.
And that'll be fine. We don't have any date we need it by, so this whenever it works out is good for us.
So move, Merrill.
Is that Brian?
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor?
In favor?
In favor.
In favor.
In favor.
In favor.
In
Carried. Thank you, everybody. Now, can we go? We're going to closed session now? Okay. I've got nothing else other than closed session item, so we need a motion to go into closed session.
I'll give you that.
Okay, all in favor?
In favor.
In favor.
In favor.
Okay, thank you.
Favor.
We'll just need a minute to turn off the stream, and then we'll